12 Rules for Life by Professor Peterson. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. Befriend people who want the best for you. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to the useless person you are today. Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. Tell the truth, or at least, don't lie. Assume that the person you are listening to might know something you don't. Be precise in your speech. Do not bother children when they are skateboarding. Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. Today, I will introduce you to the book 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos by Professor Jordan Peterson. The book was published in 2018 and has consistently ranked in the top 5 of Amazon's bestseller list for 64 weeks, making it a phenomenal success. You might be curious about how impactful these 12 rules could be. Let me share a few. Rule 1. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. Rule 3. Make friends with people who want the best for you. Rule 11. Do not bother children when they are skateboarding. And Rule 12. Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. After reading this, are you a little bit disappointed? These 4 rules essentially advocate for confidence, choosing friends wisely, avoiding prejudice, and showing kindness to the world. Many people could easily offer such life advice. So does this book really need to be written? Peterson initially wrote these rules casually. The author, Jordan Peterson, is considered one of the most well-known public intellectuals in the U.S. today. He is a clinical psychologist, a former professor at Harvard University's Psychology Department, and currently a professor at the University of Toronto in Canada. Peterson answered a question on Quora: what are the most valuable things everyone should know? His response included a list of several rules, which became incredibly popular. Later, a publisher wanted Peterson to write a self-help book for the general public, so he used his list and explained each rule using his theoretical framework. Initially planning for 40 chapters, he refined it to 12, thus creating 12 rules for life. Peterson's 12 rules are common knowledge. He wants to remind us of the fundamental principles we know but may not give due importance. Life inevitably brings challenges and moments of confusion or uncertainty. In these moments, such reminders can truly help. Many people have found resonance in this book, and it has helped them find methods to organize their lives. Today, I will help you understand this book, hoping it will offer you some inspiration too. Now, I won't be going through all 12 rules. If you're interested, you can check the links available below the video in the description. In today's reading, I want to share 2 perspectives. The social context in which this book became popular. The insights we can gain from this book. After reading the 4 rules mentioned, you might think they make sense but don't really say much. Reviews of this book are polarized. Some dismiss it as a mix of cliches, while others say it has genuinely transformed their lives. Why is a mix of cliches a lifesaver for some? To answer this, we need to look at the social environment in which this book was written. Today, Peterson's viewpoints serve as a wake-up call in America. His views have a fundamental logic. Life is painful. Cultural diversity can also bring chaos, and people are not free. Everyone should be accountable for their actions. These views are in direct opposition to mainstream American thought. Most Americans believe the world is good. Culture is diverse, and people are inherently free. This perspective comes from a movement called positive thinking, which has existed in America for over a century. Some even argue that America's strength is linked to this movement. Speaking of this, we must mention another book, Bright-Sided: How Positive Thinking is Undermining America. This book suggests that, while the positive thinking movement once had a positive impact on American society, it is out of control, leaving many people confused and perplexed. How did the positive thinking movement come about? In the early 19th century, newly independent America was a land of opportunities. Anyone could become rich overnight, but they could also go bankrupt just as quickly. Americans began abandoning their original beliefs, which were Protestant virtues of responsibility, labor, and perseverance, and started believing that mental strength could overcome anything. At that time, modern medicine was not well developed, and many illnesses couldn't be treated in hospitals. A doctor named Quimby proposed a form of mental healing. He told patients that everyone could heal themselves through mental power. Although Quimby's ideas sounded dubious, they were very popular at the time. His ideas even expanded into a life philosophy, marking the beginning of the positive thinking movement. By the 20th century, with the development of modern medicine, this philosophy became irrelevant in healthcare but unexpectedly found popularity in the field of wealth building. Back then, American society was full of self-help books, all emphasizing that positive thinking could overcome all difficulties. Just be optimistic and you'll succeed. Over time, an industry began to form around positive thinking. Advocates of this idea wrote books, created video courses, traveled for lectures, and held seminars. Eventually, even Protestantism, which was initially opposed to positive thinking, joined in. Ministers promised that God wants you to succeed. In the 21st century, positive thinking has spread like wildfire. How positive thinking is undermining America recounts how, in 2007, society seemed full of good news. TV experts said the economy would improve and house prices would rise. Many became enthusiastic about spending. But as we now know, shortly afterward, the subprime mortgage crisis hit. Many people ended up on the streets, losing their jobs and health insurance. The harsh reality of the subprime mortgage crisis struck a severe blow to positive thinking advocates and believers. These people initially believed that positive thinking would lead to success and that wealth would improve the world. However, they had to admit that positive thinking had failed. Confronted with the grim reality, believers in positive thinking felt disillusioned, and some even felt life had lost meaning. This trend led to a sense of negativity in society, spreading anxiety and making mental illness common. This is when Peterson's rules emerged. Peterson argues that positive thinking encourages people to focus only on positive outcomes, ignoring potential dangers, which is against our instincts. For instance, while driving, you must always stay alert and be ready to brake. For many young Americans, hearing Peterson's views for the first time is like a driving instructor suddenly braking for you during a driving lesson. Everyone knows they should brake, but as beginners, we often overlook this crucial aspect. Peterson offers traditional values. His popularity doesn't come from presenting novel ideas, but from speaking straightforwardly about things that are rarely discussed in the U.S. today. Peterson criticizes the positive thinking ideology. He says that happiness is fragile and life is full of suffering. According to him, our perception of the world primarily involves order and chaos. If your desk is tidy, it represents order. If it's messy, it represents chaos. Only these two states exist. Let me elaborate. Peterson believes order stems from certainty. Order is the social structure, the known world, and the familiar environment. Order makes you feel safe, and life is stable. Chaos arises from unexpected events, such as losing your job, your partner cheating, or telling a joke at a party and being met with awkward silence. How should people live in such a world? Peterson believes humanity has always tried to create meaning and establish order in chaos. He published a book called Maps of Meaning, an academic work on this issue. For instance, the Bible's book of Genesis symbolizes the transformation of cosmic chaos into order. Afterward, God created man, symbolizing the continuation of creating order from chaos. The next two chapters describe how chaos exists within order. Adam and Eve lived in the orderly paradise, but the serpent appeared. The good order of humanity was shattered by the fall, leading to chaos. Why did a serpent suddenly appear? The serpent itself symbolizes unexpected, unknown chaos. Peterson says ancient people described the world through myths and stories to establish a rational order and meaning system in their minds from the chaotic world. His 12 rules aim to help people cope with this chaotic world and find order within it. Peterson is just stating common truths. Haven't they been expressed before? Over a century ago, Dostoevsky said, "Life is suffering, and it is only by bearing one's own sins that one can realize the meaning of life." Peterson's simple and accessible rules are readily available. He noted that whenever he discussed responsibility during his lectures, he saw many people's eyes light up. These rules are age-old truths, and you might doubt their effectiveness. I interviewed a former student of Peterson, mentioned that he not only believes in Peterson's rules, but also applies them in psychological counseling, finding them effective for his patients. These principles are like medicine. They may not help healthy individuals, but they can benefit those experiencing pain or confusion. Even if we don't need this medicine now, perhaps we can learn from Peterson's way of reasoning and gain insights into how to offer advice to others. We can learn two things from Peterson about reasoning: expanding the premise's dimensions and treating reasoning like a theorem. Let's explore how Peterson explains these fundamental principles. First, let's discuss the first method, expanding the premise's dimensions. Peterson's most famous rule is the first one: winning lobsters never bow their heads, so we should stand up straight and tall. This principle essentially emphasizes the importance of confidence. However, have you ever asked yourself why we should be confident? Generally, we might argue that confidence enables us to achieve certain things, emphasizing the benefits of confidence. But if you need to convince a skeptic, they may counter, "What if I don't want to succeed or accomplish anything?" How would you persuade them? Peterson expands the premise from personal life to biological instinct. He aims to demonstrate that confidence is a natural survival requirement. He argues that humans and lobsters have more in common than we think. He then presents his first argument: inequality in distribution isn't unique to human society, but is a biological instinct. Peterson raises the question: if organisms compete for limited resources, does this competition result in irreversible damage? The answer is no. For instance, lobsters, despite being a simple species, compete for resources similarly to humans and have been around for much longer. They have survived for hundreds of millions of years without causing irreparable harm to themselves. This is because, aside from competition, organisms have developed an instinct to establish dominance with minimal cost. Most social animals possess this instinct, and lobsters are no exception. Lobsters need to molt as they grow and must stay in safe burrows, ideally covered with shells. When several lobsters are together, they compete for the best burrows. However, lobsters don't immediately fight to the death. They have a ritualized fighting process that's encoded into their nervous systems. This process has 4 stages. In the first stage, 2 lobsters exchange basic information to assess who is stronger. They wave their open claws like boxers and move back and forth. They also release fluids containing various information, such as size, gender, health, and emotional state. The weaker lobster might retreat without a fight. If both stand their ground, the fight escalates to the second stage. The lobsters engage in aggressive displays, clenching their claws, one advancing and the other retreating, and then reversing the roles. After several rounds, the more timid one might flick its tail and quickly leave. If both remain in a standoff, the fight moves to the third stage, where the real fight begins. At this stage, the lobsters try to knock each other down but don't aim to kill. If a lobster is knocked down, the fight ends. But if they're evenly matched, the battle moves to the final stage, where they use their claws to tear each other's legs or antennae. The losing lobster might die. This mechanism allows them to quickly determine who is easy to bully and who is not, establishing a stable hierarchy with minimal casualties. In other words, winner takes all isn't just a rule in human society. It's a natural trait. In the complex natural environment, hierarchy is a permanent feature. By comparing lobsters, Peterson defines the inequality in human society as a natural phenomenon. When he discusses confidence, he expands the premise to include biological instinct. Next, let's discuss Peterson's second method of reasoning: treating reasoning like a theorem. Sharing an interesting story. In a TV debate, Peterson easily out-argued the female host. The host made a typical logical fallacy called the straw man fallacy. Simply put, whenever Peterson presented a viewpoint, she would respond with, "So you're saying," misrepresenting Peterson's view to refute it, which was ineffective since she was not addressing Peterson's actual point. For example, if Peterson said, "I had bacon and eggs for breakfast," she might counter with, "So you're saying we should kill all vegetarians?" This issue is common when offering advice, making logical reasoning crucial. This is why Peterson strives to treat every principle like a mathematical theorem, proving it through logical reasoning. You might not believe subjective reasoning, but logically rigorous and provable theorems are hard to dismiss. I'll continue with the example of the lobster rule to illustrate this. Peterson says that hierarchical systems have always existed in the animal kingdom, and organisms have evolved mechanisms to monitor their hierarchical status. A defeated lobster's brain signals it has been demoted. On the surface, it becomes more timid and cautious, but scientists have proven that defeat reconstructs the lobster's brain, adapting it to its humble status. At this point, the secretion of two neuroregulating chemicals in the lobster's brain changes: serotonin and octopamine. The victorious lobster secretes more serotonin and less octopamine, while the defeated one does the opposite. Therefore, in normal circumstances, the defeated lobster avoids challenging its opponent and becomes increasingly cautious in future fights, potentially leading to further defeats. But if the defeated lobster receives an extra dose of serotonin, it will find the courage to challenge the previous winner again. Research has shown that humans and lobsters are similar in their competitive behavior, experiences, and physiological processes. When a person succeeds, the brain's monitoring mechanism allocates their status and regulates serotonin levels, which produces specific physiological or psychological responses. This brain regulation mechanism significantly impacts us. Peterson emphasizes that confidence doesn't merely maintain a psychological state, but signals your brain to release serotonin and create positive feedback. Your sense of confidence might be fragile if based solely on success and happiness, but the effects of serotonin secretion are undeniable. The success that confidence brings is a natural law, unwavering. This is why Peterson argues for confidence. Confidence signals the brain to increase serotonin and activate physiological mechanisms, which can help break the cycle of failure. This is a natural law, beyond dispute. Regarding building confidence, Peterson's argument isn't unique or necessarily the best. The Pythagorean theorem has 16 different proofs. However, we must admit that logically reasoned arguments enhance his persuasiveness. If I tell you that in a right-angled triangle, the sum of the squares of the two right-angled sides equals the square of the hypotenuse, you could test hundreds or thousands of right-angled triangles and still doubt it applies to every right-angled triangle. But if we prove it using universally accepted mathematical methods, it becomes a theorem in your mind, and you can even use it to solve other mathematical problems. Similarly, you can use Peterson's rules to solve problems you encounter in your life. That's it for 12 rules for life. In this reading, I only discussed one of the 12 rules. If you'd like to learn about the other 11 rules, you can check out Peterson's book. Peterson explains 12 basic principles in a straightforward way. In today's America, his voice might seem jarring, but it's a wake-up call that Americans need. For those confused, negative, or in pain, Peterson's reminders can be helpful. Even if you don't need these reminders now, the book can offer other insights, such as how to reason with others. I've summarized 2 points: expanding the premise's dimensions and treating reasoning like a theorem. In my opinion, this is what makes this book interesting. The importance doesn't lie in the seemingly amusing rules, but in Peterson's effort to persuade you. That's the essence of this book. You can click the description below the video to find the link to the book. Welcome to read it. You can also share this book with your friends. If you like the content of Daily Book Dive, click the subscribe button to stay updated. Your encouragement helps us continue bringing book essence to our community. Congratulations, you've finished another book.